He left the safe open to test his black maid. Her next move left him stunned. The morning sun slid through the towering windows of the estate, casting gold across polished marble. Everything inside the manor was silent, but not still. The chandeliers didn't move, but they watched. The walls, wrapped in oil paintings and velvet panels, listened like they were trained to capture secrets. And that day, there would be one. Clara stepped into the east study exactly at 7:12 a.m., as scheduled. She wore her uniform precisely. Navy blue and white apron, starched, creaseless. Her hair was pinned back into a simple twist beneath a lace-trimmed maid's cap. She always moved quietly. It wasn't just a skill, it was survival. This was her 15th day in the house. She was still spoken to only in commands, never by her name. The Beaumont estate had a strict rhythm. Rules were not written, they were implied. And Clara, being both black and new, had learned quickly how little room there was for error or presence. But what she didn't know was that she was already part of a game, a test. From the second floor, hidden behind a pane of smoked glass, Mr. Edward Beaumont, silver-haired and unblinking, watched her descend into the study. He had prepared it hours before. He'd left the dusting instructions on the desk, a fresh vase on the windowsill, and just beyond the second bookshelf, a false panel, cracked open exactly 2 inches. Inside that panel sat a safe. Its door today was ajar. Bundled stacks of euros, antique coins, a rare pocket watch, once gifted by a king, and most importantly, a set of handwritten documents, each bearing the signature of power. Clara didn't know about the camera hidden in the lamp base or the motion sensor just above the archway. She simply did what she was told. First, the windowsill, then the desk, then the framed portrait of Mr. Beaumont's late wife. She lingered a moment on that one. The woman looked kind. It was only when she reached to dust the lower shelves that she noticed the crack, a door, a hidden door. Clara knelt down, fingers brushing over the panel, and blinked. The light inside flickered. She paused. Her instincts said one thing: leave it alone. But what if it was a mistake? What if someone forgot? She looked over her shoulder. No one. Silence. Clara hesitated. Then, slowly, she pushed the panel open, revealing the full vault. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't touch a thing, but she stood, still, inches from temptation. Just then, a creak. Behind her, footsteps. She turned, heart in her mouth. Mr. Beaumont stood in the doorway. Sharp suit, no smile, no greeting. He didn't ask a question, didn't accuse. He simply looked at her. Her body froze, hands mid-air, caught in an image so fragile, so misunderstood, it could break her life in seconds. He was watching her like a hawk. Clara opened her mouth. Nothing came. Because what could she say? The safe was open. She was in front of it. She was alone. Seconds passed. Neither moved. Beaumont tilted his head ever so slightly as if to say, "Well, go on." It was a stare of quiet calculation. His eyes asked the question, his mouth didn't. What kind of woman are you, really? And in that unbearable silence, the test began. Clara's heartbeat thudded in her ears like distant drums. Her breath hitched, hands still suspended in air as if moving them would crack the tension hanging in the room. Mr. Edward Beaumont stood just inside the doorway, not saying a word. He didn't need to. His gaze said enough. She looked like a thief, like every assumption they'd ever made about her, waiting to be confirmed. Clara lowered her hands, slowly, like one might do when confronted by a weapon. Because in this house, being wrong wasn't just an offense, it was fatal to reputation, to livelihood, to dignity. I saw the panel, she began softly. It was open. Her voice didn't tremble, but it was quiet, heavy. Mr. Beaumont didn't blink. His expression was unreadable, neither stern nor kind, just observant. Clara took one step back from the open safe and folded her hands in front of her. I didn't touch anything, she added. Still, he said nothing. I was going to report it, she said, meeting his eyes now, though her spine remained respectfully straight. I didn't know if it was left open on purpose or... He raised one hand. Silence again. Clara froze mid-sentence. It wasn't a command. It was a pause, a recalibration. Mr. Beaumont stepped forward, hands behind his back, slow and deliberate. He walked past her, not looking at her now, and stopped in front of the vault. He studied it, glanced at the stacks of cash, the glint of gold, the family ring he'd left on purpose, then turned toward her. "How long have you been working here?" he asked finally. 15 days, sir." "You've never been in this room unsupervised before?" "No, sir." "And yet the first time you find this open. This." He gestured toward the vault. Clara nodded, eyes locked on his face. "And your instinct is to—" "Leave it," she said. "Then tell someone." "Someone?" he echoed. "Who?" "The head of security, or you." His eyes narrowed. Not suspicious. Curious. "Most people wouldn't stop themselves from taking something, at least not everyone." He paused. "Have you ever stolen anything, Clara?" She hesitated. "No, sir." "Never? Not even once?" "No," she said. "I've had things taken from me. I don't return that energy." Beaumont stared at her for a long time. Clara didn't flinch. "You're not afraid?" he asked. "I am," she said, "but I'm not guilty." That answer made something shift in his expression, a twitch at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile, but something softer than steel. He walked slowly toward the window, hands still folded. His voice dropped into something almost conversational. "Do you know what was in there, Clara?" "I saw money, documents, gold. There's a coin in that vault," he said, looking out the window. "One of a kind, worth more than most houses in this city. There's also a watch, gifted to my grandfather by Winston Churchill." Clara listened quietly. "Do you know why I left the vault open?" A beat. Clara blinked. "It was a test." He turned, finally, fully, to face her. Yes. Her shoulders lowered by an inch, not from relief, from confirmation. "Why?" she asked. "Because people lie," he said simply. "They smile to your face and rob you behind your back, and when you're old and rich and alone, you start trusting systems more than souls." He walked back toward her. His shoes made soft taps against the marble. "I had someone," he said, "a man I trusted for 20 years, stole from me. More than money, he stole my name, my trust." "I'm sorry," Clara whispered. "I'm not," he said, "because it taught me something. No matter how long someone's been around, you don't know who they are until you give them the chance to fail." He looked at her carefully now. "And you didn't?" Clara's brows drew in, unsure what to say. "I saw you hesitate," he said. "I saw your instinct, your pause, and your choice." He took a step closer. "And that's why you're still standing here." She let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "I don't expect praise," she said quietly. "I'm not offering praise," he replied. "I'm offering possibility." Clara looked up, surprised. "I need someone in this house I can trust," he said. "Not just to clean floors and dust windows, but someone who sees what others don't, who hesitates when no one's looking, who chooses right without applause." He paused. "Would you consider another role?" Clara blinked. "Sir? Something beyond Maid. Something with real responsibility." She said nothing for a moment. Then, "You mean, trust me?" "I already did," he said, "and you passed." He looked once more at the open vault, then reached over and pushed the door gently closed. The lock clicked. But something else opened. The conversation wasn't over. The offer wasn't final. But something had changed. And when Clara walked out of the study that day, the weight on her shoulders was lighter, but the air around her heavier. Because now Mr. Beaumont was watching, but not as a master, as a man searching for something more than a maid. The next morning, Clara woke before the sun. The silence in the staff quarters was still and thick, but something inside her buzzed. She sat at the edge of her bed, staring down at her shoes, the same worn pair she'd worn since her first day. They looked smaller today, or maybe she had simply grown overnight. A folded note had been slid under her door. "Come to the East Study, 7 o'clock sharp. Wear something else." E.B. She didn't own anything else. At 6:15, she stood outside the staff laundry. Ms. Aldridge, the senior housekeeper, gave her a long, suspicious look as Clara quietly borrowed a crisp, dark gray suit jacket from the donations closet. It hung on her frame awkwardly, but she straightened the lapels and rolled the sleeves with calm precision. Her maid shoes remained, but her walk was different. At exactly 7 o'clock, she stepped into the East Study. Mr. Beaumont was already there. He sat in the armchair, his legs crossed, a small notebook resting on the mahogany table beside him. His morning coffee steamed gently. He looked at her, really looked, from head to toe, and said only one word, "Good." He gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit." Clara sat, hands folded in her lap. "There's a guest arriving today," he said, "a lawyer from Geneva. She'll be here to review some estate holdings I no longer care to manage." He leaned forward. "You're going to greet her and walk her through the archives. Alone." Clara blinked. "But, sir—" "No one else will assist you," he cut in. "The house staff doesn't know. They weren't told. You'll have access to my private office, vault records, and security keys. Everything you need is on this." He held up a sleek silver flash drive and placed it in her hand. Clara stared at it. I've never done anything like this before," she admitted. "Neither had I," he said, "until I did." She looked up at him, puzzled. "You said yesterday you weren't looking for praise, that you'd had things taken from you," he said. "People like that, they don't run, they rise." A long pause. He softened, just a little. "Let's see if your heart can lead your hands." At precisely 10:04 a.m., Clara stood at the grand front doors of the estate, hands clasped in front of her. Her name badge was gone. The apron was gone. She wore the too big blazer and her own trembling poise. A black car pulled up, sleek, quiet. A woman stepped out, sharp gray skirt suit, red lipstick, tablet in hand. She didn't offer a smile. "I'm here for Mr. Beaumont." Clara took a breath. "Yes, my name is Clara. I'll be walking you through the estate holdings today." The woman raised an eyebrow. "You're not one of his lawyers?" "No," Clara replied calmly, "but I'm someone he trusts." There was a pause. Then the woman nodded once, slowly. "Very well." They walked through the halls, past rooms Clara had only ever dusted but never entered, the glass archive was locked, just as Beaumont said. But Clara's ID now worked. She accessed files, codes, vault manifests. Her hands only shook once. The lawyer asked hard questions. Clara didn't flinch. She didn't know all the answers. But she didn't pretend to. And somehow, that earned more respect than false knowledge ever could. By noon, the tour was complete. The lawyer stepped back, folded her arms, and looked Clara over once more. "You know," she said, "I meet hundreds of people in this industry. Most of them speak too much. You speak just enough." Clara didn't know what to say to that, so she simply nodded. The lawyer smiled faintly, the kind of smile you can't fake, then turned and left. That evening, Clara stood once again in the east study. Mr. Beaumont didn't speak at first. He just handed her a folded note. She opened it and read, "Clara Williams is hereby appointed interim estate manager of the Beaumont household." She looked up, eyes wide. "Sir, He held up a hand. "I'm not done." He picked up the same flash drive and twirled it in his fingers. "I once built empires from people who wore $1,000 suits," he said, "and most of them lied better than they worked." He stood and faced her fully. "You walked into my house with nothing, and every day I watched you move like someone who was afraid to be seen." Clara swallowed. "You passed my test. But more importantly, you've made me rethink how I choose people." She looked down, unsure what to say. "Don't thank me," he added. "This isn't charity. This is recognition." He stepped closer. "I've had assistants, advisors, partners, but I've never had someone who could stand in this house and see it from the ground up. Until now." Clara felt something sharp in her throat, a feeling she hadn't known in years. Not gratitude, belonging. Mr. Beaumont turned away, then paused at the door. "Your new quarters will be on the second floor," he said. "Uniforms are optional." He smiled, barely. "Though I have a feeling you'll outgrow all of them soon." Clara stood in that study for a long time after he left, the letter still in her hand. She wasn't cleaning anymore. She was being seen, not for what she had worn, but for what she carried. And tomorrow would not be the same. A week passed, then two. Clara no longer wore the maid's apron. The ruffled cap was gone. In its place, a simple gray blazer tailored just for her, a nameplate that read "Estate Manager," and a quiet confidence that made even the senior staff stand straighter when she walked by. She had her own office now, the same room where she'd once vacuumed around Mr. Beaumont's shoes, silent and unseen. But with the new role came new tension. Some of the long-standing staff didn't like it. Whispers echoed through the service halls. "She was just cleaning dishes 2 weeks ago." "She probably charmed the old man." "She's temporary. Watch. He'll forget her by next month." Clara heard it all and said nothing, because she'd learned that silence, when rooted in truth, often roars louder than insult. But Mr. Beaumont, he heard the whispers too, and he had plans. It was a rainy Thursday morning when Clara was summoned to the central conference room. It was the one room she had never dared step into, not even as a maid. The walls were lined with velvet, the table long enough to host royalty. Oil paintings of past generations stared down from every corner. When she entered, she froze. The entire staff was there, all of them, maids, chefs, gardeners, security, drivers, accountants, butler, and most notably, the 6 department heads who had served under Mr. Beaumont for over a decade. She was the last to arrive. At the head of the table stood Mr. Beaumont. He didn't sit. He didn't smile. He gestured for Clara to come forward. "This meeting," he began, "was not scheduled, because I didn't want rehearsed manners." His eyes swept the room. "A few weeks ago, I left a safe open, on purpose, as a test. I wanted to see what kind of person I had allowed into my home." The room stiffened. "I've had family betray me, partners lie to my face, but this woman," he turned to Clara, "proved something most of you haven't even tried to." A murmur spread. "Not only did she pass that test," he continued, "she has since managed over 42 estate decisions flawlessly. She's organized assets, mediated staff issues, and done it without chasing praise or using fear." His voice rose slightly. "And yet I hear whispers, accusations, doubt." Several heads dipped. "So today," Beaumont said, "we put an end to it." He turned toward Clara. "I've rewritten my estate trust," he said, "effective immediately." He reached into his coat and pulled out a signed document. "In the event of my death or incapacitation, the entire estate, property, holdings, assets, and legacy will fall under the stewardship of Clara Williams until a permanent heir is named." The room exploded in whispers. One man, the senior accountant, stood. "Sir, with all due respect," Beaumont raised a hand. "You had years to earn that seat," he said calmly, "and you used it to count gold, not grow people." He handed the paper to Clara. "You didn't ask for this," he said to her. "You didn't even want it, and that's exactly why it's yours." Clara's hands shook as she held the document. Her eyes burned, but she refused to cry. Not here, not in front of the ones who waited for her to fail. Beaumont stepped beside her. "This woman," he said, "was once invisible in this house. Today she stands as its backbone. If any of you cannot accept that, the door is there. But if you stay, you answer to her." He walked away without another word. Clara looked out across the room. Some met her eyes, some couldn't. But no one moved, and in that silence a throne was built, not from wealth, not from power, but from unshakable integrity. Later that evening, Clara sat alone on the edge of the garden fountain. The rain had stopped, but the air was damp, cool. Mr. Beaumont approached slowly, his steps softer now, like he no longer needed to remind the earth who he was. "I hope you're not angry," he said, sitting beside her. Clara didn't answer at first. Then, "You didn't have to do that." "I know." "Then why?" He looked at her. "Because I've spent a lifetime searching for loyalty in the loud ones, the ones who sold me handshakes and hollow speeches. You never even tried." He looked down at his cane. "You just kept showing up, in silence, in service, in strength." Clara finally looked at him. "Do you regret it?" He smiled faintly. "I regret not finding you sooner." She exhaled slowly, eyes glistening. "Thank you." He shook his head. "Don't thank me. Lead me." And she did. Months passed. The estate changed. Clara introduced education programs for the staff's children, revised payroll, restored dignity where there was silence. She didn't rule with a title. She guided with presence. And every guest who entered the house learned something without being told. The woman in the gray blazer, the one who knew every corner of the estate by heart, wasn't just the estate manager. She was the reason it stood tall. If this story touched your heart, give it a like, let us know your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this. And don't forget to tell us where you're watching from.